Episode of Girl Sesh. Girl Sesh time. You know what that means? It means that four midlife friends talk about everything that's happening in midlife, like everything, not just, our vaginas or our hormones or our dating life or our empty nesting or our lots of children shuffling around. We talk about things like trust, toxicity, uh, adult friendships. um, we talk about what it was like as a child growing up in the 80s and 90s, we talk about everything. And today, with my co hosts, Stephanie and Lisa, by the way, I'm wonderful. My name is Wonderful. We're going to talk about something a little deep, which is every week it's deep, but we're going to talk about surrender, what that means to trust, here's the thing. I know so many women who are going through a lot of emotional things like depression, right? That's a for real thing. And I have a girlfriend right now who's taking care of her elderly parents who's in a depression. And what was interesting is my first response was, hey, I'm not saying that it's not a hard thing. Have you thought about hormone replacement therapy? Because it felt kind of like insensitive for me to say it. So it took me a minute to want to respond to her. Like, I didn't want to just be like, yeah, cool story, but what about HRT? But I was like, that is a contributing factor to what you're currently experiencing. And it is not easy to take care of aging parents at all. We've done it. But I also think that because our hormones are all kind of out of whack, 'cause she's like 46 years old, that's a thing. It's part of the thing. So let's just be for real and not feel, I was feeling kind of like shameful because I was like, oh, I don't want to be that insensitive friend, but it's not insensitive. It's very loving for me to say, hey, by the way, have you thought about HRT, hormone replacement therapy? But I have not heard a thing, and that was hours ago. So I could also be hurting her feelings. But at this point, I got to let it go because that wasn't my intention. My intention was in love. So, let's talk about it, ladies. Let's talk about all the things like when you get that space, like I was feeling, where I know I should trust that what I say isn't hurtful. I know that I want to surrender to being a loving friend, but she's being really like, shit sucks because I feel so isolated. I feel alone. I'm taking care of my parents. This is not cool. And I'm super depressed. What do I do? I didn't want to tell her that. I didn't want to. So, what about you? What's going on for you today? That's my morning.
I think that's a twofold though, because we can respond in our way of like, as women, we want to help, right? We want and in our help, we want to help find a solution, right? But also at the same time, if you like on the flip side of that coin, right? Like sometimes when we're talking to our significant others or our friends, sometimes it's more like, I just need a place to like let this out, this venting out. And I've had to be really mindful of like asking a question of, are you looking for a solution or are you just looking for a place for someone to listen to you?
Mm,
But I
yeah.
think like your response to her is also like something that us as women need to talk about more. Like, hey, I'm going to give you this space, but also you're at an age where this is serious business. The suicide rate in
Right.
this age group is so incredibly high. And,
Yeah.
Oprah's doing like a special coming up on
Yeah, I saw that.
perimenopause, right? And it literally was like your body. I mean, if you think about like any of us who've had the privilege of being able to, create life inside of us and carry it and deliver, your body goes through this crazy thing, right? And it makes sense because you're like, oh, I'm building a human. And so like all of that brain fog makes sense because it's going there. Well, here's the thing right now our bodies are rebuilding, right? It's starting to like re-figure out like, oh, you don't need to do this anymore. Now it needs to do something else. And so it's throwing that connection off. And in doing so, it creates this disconnect in your brain, causing you to have these brain fogs or causing you to have these depressions because your body's like, I don't know what's going on. And like I called, a few months ago and I was driving and all of a sudden I was just like, "Oh my God, everybody hates me. Everybody
Mhm.
hates me. And why am I living? Why?" And I'm like, I was shocked. Like I was having arguments with myself. Luckily I have a very strong mind foundation, but I was like, I could see how someone who already has a history of struggling with like depression or, like might not have a stronger foundational base that they're aware of, this could really take them. And unfortunately, like I've experienced loss for two girlfriends in this age group to suicide. And so now looking back on it as to where I am now, I'm like, oh, because all these symptoms can start at 35, that makes sense. And it makes me feel sad. Like, had I known what I know now, maybe I could have been like, hey, have you tried HRT? Have you
Right.
gone and had your levels checked? Like I'm very open and honest about that conversation because I want us to thrive as women. I don't want us just to live. I want us to thrive.
Yeah. Yeah. Stephanie, what about you?
Yeah, totally relatable. And I'm like Lisa, we're very in tune with our bodies, right? And we talk
Mhm.
about this before, how most women, I would say society in general, men and women, are very desensitized to their bodies. They just
Mhm.
are. And November, right before Thanksgiving, when I'm pacing my house and I feel like I'm having a nervous breakdown, the only thing that was saving to me was I was sensitized to my body. I was able to take a step back. And I was like Lisa, I was like, I felt like I was having a nervous breakdown. I didn't want to live like this anymore. Like those thoughts came into your head and you jump back. You're like, whoa, that has
Yeah.
never crossed my mind before. Holy cow.
Right.
And it was stepping back and saying, okay, I'm not having a nervous breakdown. This is not what's happening. What is going on? And working it out in my head. And that's when it literally pivoted. I'm like, this is my hormones. Something's
Yeah.
going on. This is my hormones, right? My period had stopped in June, and I contacted. It was my daughter-in-law's mom, who's actually on HRT too. We both are. At the time, I was just on testosterone, and she says, "Yeah, call your doctor immediately. It could be your testosterone levels have gotten too high, your estrogen's gotten too low. Like you're
Could
just
be a
going to be
lot.
all over the
Yeah.
board." And sure enough, I called her. She started me on a little estrogen patch. At the time I was pelleting. I'm no longer doing pelleting. I do injection, but I was on a patch. She gave me progesterone at night, and I started on a low dose of a peptide. Within just a few days, I was like, oh,
Right.
feels so much better. My brain fog, my anxiety, everything,
Right.
my whole body just went whoosh.
And on the flip
Yeah.
side of that too, like keep in mind, ladies, it's not just when you stop bleeding because,
Yes.
I'm still in the bleeding phase of my perimenopause. And so like for it happened to me. So it's not just when all of a sudden you stop, like all of these symptoms
Right.
start, Stephanie and I had these big things, but I'm sure if we were more in tune with our bodies, we would have probably
Right.
noticed these littler cues that our body was giving us ahead of time, but it was like, nope, you weren't
Yeah.
paying attention, so now it's this big one. And it
Right.
I think that's when we start to pay attention to our bodies. But I think for us, our like Stephanie and my big one would be something smaller to other people, right? Because we are
Right.
so in tune. But I'm sure that we both had even smaller cues that we weren't paying attention to.
Right. Well,
100%.
and then when we add life experiences too, right? Like we're not really associating that. And I think that's where, excuse me, where I think this word trust and surrender really comes in because we have such a knack for, oh, it's cool. I can handle it because I've handled it before. I've look at how far I've come to say like, hey, stop. And here's an example. I'm just gonna throw Lisa under the bus without her knowing that I'm getting her under the bus.
Right.
So she's like, she never texts me at 10 o'clock at night. She's not even that person. She's like my husband. They get tired at 8 and want to go to bed at 9, right? And I'm like second wind, 9:30 p.m. And she is like, she sends me a text just saying that she is just feeling all kinds of ways. And I am listening and looking at it and reading it and going, yeah, I go, but you know, the one thing that's missing in this entire novel that you're writing is giving yourself grace. Like giving yourself the opportunity that all of your accumulated nuttiness was like a 35-year span of your life. You didn't really think it was going to get all cured in 4 months, right? Like,
Yeah, I
take it
did.
easy.
Yeah, I
She's
did.
an overachiever.
I know. I'm
Oh, I
like,
did
dude,
that
take a
like
breath.
2 months ago.
Yeah, it hasn't even been 4 months. I was just making that up. And then she stopped talking to me. And I was like, oh, hopefully she
Went
fell
to bed.
asleep.
It's a
Hopefully she went to
mess.
sleep after that. Because I was just like, I get it. It's tough. It sucks. And she just like in big letters, healing sucks. Why does everybody do that? And she's like, I can never do anything afterwards. I'm just like useless. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, well, your body doesn't even know how to relax, right?
Yep.
And so I think that that level of, but it was good for me too, because I realized it's surrender. And then it's so funny. Um, Stephanie sends out a message and I'm like, this is another thing we do as women. And she's like, okay, so I love what we're doing. We need to, I'd love to see. And she's just asking, like, do you think we should have a social media page? Do you think? And immediately my mind's like, yeah, let's do this, let's do this. And I'm planning it in my head. Oh, also, I got 8,000 things that I don't, if I say yes, I'm telling her like I'm in it with you. And then I'm gonna be like, actually, I can't do none of that crap right now, right? So I had to take a breath. And instead of losing my mind about all the plans, I had to take a breath and be like, I think this is a great idea, but I'll let you know right now, I'm moving. Like there might be a span in my life where I'm homeless. And I don't know if I could pour any more of that if that's the case, because everything's happening so fast. And I felt first guilty. I felt some guilt about like, oh my gosh, but I think that's what it's, as midlife, we have to give each other that space and be like, oh, cool. Like, I'm not trying to say we're all in this at 100%. And I'm not even saying that I don't want you to be in it. I'm just throwing out an idea. But notice how I heard it. I heard it like, I'm going to plan it all out. I'm going to, like, that's
But
not
I
what
think
you asked.
that's what makes this is real. This is real. That's what makes friendships real. It's when you're
Mhm.
able to say, hey, which like I asked, when I put a voice memo to you guys, and I was like, hey, what do you guys think? It's okay to give that real feedback of I want to do this, but hey, I am getting ready to move. I've got this, I've got this. It's not saying a no, it's saying we can put it on the back burner for a while, but being real and honest and not trying to take on more than you can chew, right? Like, and that's okay. And
Right.
it's okay that we say we can put it on the back burner. That's okay.
Right. Right. Well,
And
and I
support each
think
other in that.
Lisa even followed it up with, but if you want to do it, let's high five you.
Well,
I would high
like
five you.
when I read it too, like my mind is a lot like Wonderful's too. Is like, okay, we gotta do this, and that. But in my journey, my healing journey, that's been a minor 4 months. It's been a long process, but like this really intense journey, right? This portion of it, I realized I need to say no to more things, and when I saw your message, I was just kind of like instantly I was like exhausted. And so I was like, okay, my body feels exhausted. So this is a
That's
no.
a tell.
This is
Right.
a tell, and I need to listen to that. And that's why I was like, but I know that's something that I would probably have capacity in the future.
Yeah.
But I was like, I don't have capacity for it right now. And so that's where I was just kind of like, you know, yes, if you can do this, but in full transparency, I don't have capacity for it. And I think
Right.
that goes back to also, when you're talking about being true and honest, that's me being authentic because I was being authentic version of myself. I listened to truly what my body was saying, what we can handle, And
Right.
that's been really good for me. And especially in these last couple weeks, I've kind of had that realization because I was doing a lot of things because it was out of control. I wanted
Right.
it to be perfect. I wanted it to be this. And I was like, if I do it, then I know that it'll go right and it'll do this thing. And I was just like, no. And my therapist was like, where are your energies going in any given moment? And what does that tell you?
Mm.
And I was like, oh, okay, let me listen to my energies. And it's been interesting. I've been like, I was telling like, when I text Wonderful last night, I was like, I feel like I'm a zombie walking around. I don't really know what I'm doing, just going through the motions. Every once in a while, like the true authentic me will like pop in and be like, "Hey, guess what?" And I'll be like, "Oh, cool." And then it's like back to zombie mode. Like I was just like, "Ah, I don't want to record today. I don't want to talk to you guys. I'm not in the mood." And it's not because I don't have love or I don't,
Right.
it's like I'm just not in that space. Like
Right.
weather is freaking crap. We live in a bipolar state. Can't figure out if it wants to be sunny or rainy or gray or
Or warm or
warm.
cold.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like this
Yep.
fluctuation is not helping me and my healing and just all like the personal stuff I'm going through. And I was just like, oh, okay, this is
Hmm.
life. And so this morning I was like, when my shake spilled and made a huge mess everywhere, I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna start watching that Schultz. Isn't that what that show is on Netflix where
Oh,
Jonah uh, yeah,
The one with Jonah Hill and
yeah.
his therapist. Yeah.
And I was like, let me just
That's,
watch it. And I can't even just sit there and watch it because it's so deep too, right? Like I've been watching
yeah.
this movie for 2 weeks now, and I'm only 30 minutes in because I keep going back and taking notes and listening. And
Mhm.
literally the part this morning he was talking about was the three aspects of our reality, which are pain, uncertainty, and constant work. And
Mhm.
the pain part is in order for us to get to the goals and to grow and to be who we need to be, you need to love the process of dealing with all three of those pieces. And pain is hard because pain makes you be your authentic self. And like wonderful, you posted this morning about authenticity and the power of authenticity. And we walk around here a lot of unauthentic people. Like, the thing I've realized is like, I don't really know who I really, really am.
Mhm. Now imagine that and hormones.
Mm.
That is why there's such a high rate of suicide. And I would just want to piggyback on that because I've been out of estrogen for a week. Y'all, a week. And at first I was like, didn't notice. Oh, but I notice. Oh, but I noticed. And it's so funny because I've been waiting on getting peptides, right? Because I thought, oh, well, I feel like it's overdosing everything. So I was going to wait. Oh, no. I put an order in today because I realized how much of like, if I wasn't like how you started, if I wasn't emotionally in tune, and what Stephanie said, if I was so disconnected or disassociated with my body, I would be losing it because I've had some serious anxiety attacks this weekend for no reason. Zero. There wasn't anything that sparked it. There wasn't anything, right? Like nothing. And I'm losing it. And that's when it hit. I looked over at my husband the other morning because he's like, he can't, I just need to be on him. I feel like I'm a big fat crying 4 year old. I just need him to hold me all the time. And I look over and I go, I've been out of estrogen for a week. And he's like, okay, I, because he's just like, because every time he moves, I'm like, what are you doing? Where are you going? He finally was like, why do you need to know all my moves right now? I gotta go. But he goes like, I want to get water. And I really am. I was having a panic attack again. I was like, he got up and I was like, what are you doing? And I'd say it just like that. And it freaks him out because I'm freaked out that he's moving from me. And that when I said it, he was like, oh, Okay, okay, cool. You should check on that and see, because you can track it. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, because it is. So, right? So when I was going through the hard things that you're going through right now, Lisa, the emotional pieces, if I didn't have HRT, it would have been 10 times heavier.
Yeah.
And now I kind of know that, and I'm not even going to that because your process right now, you're in a ringer. You're in the ringer. Like personal shit is the ringer, right? So, and I'm not even going through that. And I was having a panic attack. And that has a lot to do with hormones. And I just feel like, oh my gosh. And then I went to Costco and forgot my salt. Oh my gosh.
It's not been at Costco, like my Costco. It has not been there.
I didn't even look yesterday because Costco on Sunday I can't.
It's
It's so
terrible.
hard, you guys. It's so hard. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that's I feel you on that in terms of, I mean, I don't even know to the degree of struggle you're going through, Lisa. I just know it is at the pinnacle of a struggle. I just feel it. I just like sense it because, we can tell each other's, we can sense.
Mhm.
Like, I can sense that Stephanie is, I'm not saying I'm a sensor, I'm not doing that, but I can sense that you've been talking about it for a couple of weeks now, this transition of your professional space. I can sense that that's really an important space for you to sit in and go through and experience and really plan or not plan, big plan or little plan, medium plan or like, just burn it all down kind of thing. And we know that of each other. As women, we have a sixth sense. We can understand that about each other, but we disregard it a lot because we're trying to not feel our own feelings.
Yeah.
So we don't want to include other people's energies and feelings, even though it is important for us to lean on each other and to just depend on each other that way, is my thought. So now I'm going back to my message going, even if she doesn't respond, I feel good about it. I'm cool.
Yeah.
HRT to the death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I was going, Lisa, where we were talking about going like our mid-30s, right?
Mhm.
That really is. I just listened to podcast this past week, and I've been debating if I agree or disagree, but they were saying that if you have daughters, like encourage them to go get their hormones checked in like their early 20s when they feel the most optimal,
Mhm.
and let that be a baseline.
Yep.
I do agree with that partially. My disagreement is what my body needed at 25 is not what my body needs at 50.
No, but I think like
True.
the base is like having a baseline. So I've had my hormones checked since I was in my 20s
Mhm.
because I used to have really bad PMDD. And so I had huge swing shift moods. Like the week before I would bleed, I would rage. Like it was crazy and I had no control over it. So the good thing that I had that baseline is we took it in my 20s a bunch. We took it in my 30s. We took it when I was pregnant. So we've kind of see the ebbs and flows.
Mhm.
We've seen it when, because I had tests done when I was on my PMDD, when I started seeing the natural doctor, it was like, okay, let's see what your levels are right as the week before you bleed. Let's see what they are the week you're bleeding, and let's see the week after, so that we had like a good baseline to kind of see where were you the most even, where were you the most even killed. So I think history wise, that's great to have, right? Like, no, it shouldn't be matching my 20s. Because again, like you said, Stephanie,
Yeah.
I needed at 25. I definitely don't need now at 45, right? I'm not trying to
Right.
make no babies. There's no more factory work here. Okay. This is done.
Yeah.
Shut down. But I think that's good to have that history. And I don't think as women, we have historically been given those opportunities. And in doing so, it does us a disservice because every woman's body is different. Like what
Right.
Stephanie's body needs to feel normal. Like it could show you like, oh, when she's at a 50-50 ratio or when she's at a 60-20 ratio, that's when she did really well. Let's start that as a baseline now. Let's get her to a 60, 40 ratio and see how that works out. oh, that's too much or that's not enough. And I feel like that gives our doctors more success to treat us. So yeah, that's I could see where like no, I don't want to match it, but it kind of
But
helps.
at the
But
same,
I think,
how many doctors are telling women in their 20s,
Right.
right,
Right.
let's see what where your hormones are at? None of them.
None of them. But they
None of
weren't
them.
telling that
right,
to me in my 20s either. The first
Right.
doctor I went to, I was like, here's an antidepressant. And I looked at him and I was like, fuck you very much.
right.
Yeah, 100%.
Here's lithium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go
And then
figure
the
that
other thing
out.
too, like for me, in my mid 30s, I was going through a divorce.
Mhm.
So add my hormones were shifting. I just didn't know it.
Hmm.
Right,
You're going through a divorce, which I don't care who you are. Divorces suck. Like it's rough.
right,
I was a single mom with 4 kids. So at the time, everything was shifting for me that I should have been able to probably catch it a little bit sooner.
Hmm.
I was going through so much that I wasn't paying attention to that
Yeah.
because your
right,
focus is
right,
You're in
on
survival.
some
You're
it
in
was
right,
survival.
survival.
Hmm.
It was survival,
right.
100% survival. And then by the time I really realized what the hell, I was so neck deep in it.
Yeah.
Then I'm trying to find someone to help me, which was a whole nother 13
Journey in
year
itself.
journey
Yeah.
in itself, so yeah, it's and so sometimes when we're starting to shift, we can be having a ton of things happening in our life. I used to travel with my daughter all the time. She played select ball. Lisa knows what this is like when you have kids and
Yeah.
sports and you're so focused on all the other things that
Right.
all the being sensitive to your body gets on the back burner.
Yep.
And
Right.
all you're thinking of
Yeah.
is I just got to push through. I just have to push through,
Right.
at
Well,
those
I think
moments in
that's
life.
why there's such a need for someone like you, Stephanie, like somebody who isn't biased to just a doctor's diagnosis or somebody that's just, so on the woo-woo side of the things. You need somebody because I feel like in my 20s, if I had gone in to get something like that done, right? So I in my based on my family history, I needed to start looking at my hormones earlier because of how many women in my family line have passed away from breast cancer. So it was imperative for me to see, but two reasons why I wouldn't do it is first of all, I don't want to keep living scared. If they tell me like, oh, da 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 da, bad news bears and all this, I'd have been like, you know what? I'd rather live not knowing than spend every day freaked out that I'm gonna die from cancer. Or the other thing is that the guidance wasn't centered around my needs, but like more medically induced type things, like medications, supplements, the whole thing. I think when we can balance it with somebody that can help explain, like, yeah, I wouldn't go right into parenting at 26. I wouldn't, I would keep an eye out in the process of movement. You need that midwife in the middle. You need
Hmm.
somebody that can midwife you through the process of getting into your midlife. And there isn't a lot of that. There isn't, that's not happening. You either get a nurse or a doctor. Those are your two choices, and a naturopath. But there's not somebody that's in the middle that has the experience and the knowledge, but isn't restricted to medical guidelines.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that's important.
I mean that comes back to like a deeper conversation about like society and like
Mhm.
the way we've been told, like you think about like our parents' age, they believe everything the doctor says. The doctor can do no wrong, the doctor does this, right? And then now we're getting to our age where we start to question because we're like, this isn't making sense. And the medical industry, just medical history in general, is based off of like their basic guidelines and their basic structure of how the medical field started is based off of a male's body and a male's build. And
Right.
then they just kind of like shifted it to fit a female's body. So it's like more
Yeah.
recent that we're really like actually studying women. And it's because more women are like, no, I mean, you see so many of these, OBGYN female doctors that were like, as I started going through my perimenopause and my midlife, I was like, there is no information. And
Right.
so now they're shifting and they're doing all these new things and they're, researching and discovering, but it's because it took us as women being in these spaces that historically we have not been in
Right.
to say enough is enough. We need something different. And so I'm hoping that young girls, I think it's really important once they start bleeding, they should really start having their hormones monitored and checked. I think that should be the guideline basis because we don't know enough about it to be like, oh yeah, well we'll just start you on HRT in at 50. No, here I am. I was at 20. I was doing HRTs when I was in my 20s.
Right.
So,
But you also need to, I think this is why it's important that, a person like you, Stephanie, gets connected to naturopaths and doctors because they need to be able to hand off
mhm,
young people or women in general to like, hey, here's a trusted partner that can guide you through more specifically from an emotional space that they don't really have time for, or nor do they want to make time for, right? Because they're seeing a slew of different variations of issues, women issues, so to speak,
So to
right?
speak.
Like,
Right.
because we just don't know. We don't know. I who knew so many things like hair loss associated with that, things that are just we just oddly show up, like
yeah.
skin rashes, like who knew that that was a thing, or headaches,
Or dry
right?
mouth. That's why we
Or
were talking
dry
about the salt
mouth.
earlier.
Yeah, right. Or like, okay, here's another thing I'm going to ask you guys. Tell me the truth. I've really been thinking about Botox.
Yeah. Rock it out. I've done
Like,
it. Love it.
well,
I just
I
like to think
want.
about it so people don't actually know what I'm thinking because my face isn't quiet.
Okay, and here's why. I saw a bit. Okay, I was a huge fan of the supermodel era of the 90s, right? Huge fan. And they did a recent thing where they still all look the same, kind of, right? Like the older version, granted. And I can't remember who it was. One of those supermodel, I don't know, maybe it was Kate Moss. It's one of those ladies was talking about getting Botox not for beauty, but she was getting Botox to help even out sort of like her look, her overall look. So yes, there's some vanity in it, but it wasn't just primarily because she wanted to look younger. She wanted to have an even look because she's noticed as she got older, I don't know. I think she has some kind of Eastern European in her. It started to sag in different spaces. And I was looking at my face, and here's why. I was looking at my pictures and I was like, I have these laugh smiles and I can't stand it when I take pictures. And it like crinkles and it makes me look like I have 8,000 shadows on my face. And I was like, I wonder if I Botox that thing when I smile, it doesn't crinkle. It just like stays.
And then this is gonna be your smile.
So here's the key, and I will say this, and this is one of the reasons why I love my nurse injector. Um, she says, like when it comes to Botox, it comes to fillers, she has actually turned a girl away and said, I'm not going to do this anymore because she kept wanting more and more. Let's like, she kept wanting more in her lips. She kept wanting more. And when you start to look like Janice off the Muppets, you think you need to pull back a little bit. Okay. I'm just saying. And so, because that's a reflection of her work, she won't do it. She's like, an injector's job is to enhance the beauty that you already have.
Mm.
So that's their job. And that's, if you want to go above that, she will turn people away because she's like, that's not my job. My job is not to make you look like your ears are bows on the back of your head. Like you're just, I'm here to
Yeah.
enhance your beauty.
Yeah.
And when you get these injectors who are, it's just given the industry a really bad name. And you see these women walking around. Now, I'm not even talking about women our age. I'm talking about girls in their 20s
Yeah.
walking around, right? And they've got so much filler. They're ruining their collagen too. Because by the time
Yeah.
they do reach their age, it's not gonna look very good. But
Mm.
those are the injectors that I have respect for, are the ones that maintain that it's just for enhancement. It's to enhance your own natural beauty, not to make you look distorted,
Yeah.
right?
My
So
friend An injector too. And I like that you said injector because Botox is a brand. So there's different types of
Oh,
Yep.
that can be injected into you, and there's all different kinds, but like a true injector doctor, nurse practitioner that does injections that's good does turn people away, like you said, Stephanie, because it is, the one thing she said to me, I go, God, Michael, my 11s are turning into 12s, they're getting deep because I've always like furrowed my brow just now. She goes, what it is that your muscle needs to be strengthened. And so that's why
Mhm.
it's say, and the Botox will strengthen that muscle temporarily to kind of help. And I was like, I don't know. I don't want to look like the one Asian dude where his face, like, she's like, no, that's
it doesn't move.
yeah, she's like, that's fillers, and he has a bad person that keeps filling his face, and he should have been told
Mm.
no, and they just keep going back, and people just do it. And she goes, I tell people no all the time because I'm not. It's a reflection of my work, and I don't want my work to walk around like that.
And you could also
Yeah.
go like the long, like I can go up to like 6 months before getting injections again. So they'd like you to come every 3, I think it is, every 3 or 4. I can push it all the way out to like 6 with it.
Mm.
And I can still move my forehead. I can still move my eyes. My face is not paralyzed, right? But that's knowing that's the injector, right? That's that injector understanding how many units to put in to achieve that polished look that still looks natural. You can still have movement in your face. You're not walking like this, and you can't like you can actually move. And that's what they need to know. How many units to inject to not over inject,
Right.
right?
Right, right.
My
Because you're
daughter
not
gets
walking in
Botox for
knowing.
headaches.
Yeah.
I
Because
remember
you're
my
not the one
dentist.
walking in saying, I think I need,
Yeah,
20
Right,
else, whatever's,
yeah.
because you're not the expert in it. You're there
Right.
right.
for a solution.
When I was going through my divorce, I didn't know that I felt the stress because again, I'm really good at my coping mechanism is tasking. So I look like I'm very productive and I'm doing really well. And my dentist was like, "You are going through a lot." And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm fine." And she's like, she could see like my mouth was like jacked up. She goes, "You could get Botox for your jaw to like relax it so then maybe you're not clenching so much." And I was just like,
Oh,
I'm not doing that. I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm fine. But, the other day I had a dentist appointment and she was like, your teeth are doing so much better. She goes, when I first started seeing you, you were going through a lot and you're definitely in a better place now. And I could tell. She's like, I still see, the damage from other things, but overall, your teeth are doing really well. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, I remember when she told me I was going through a lot, I was like, no, I'm
mm.
not. You don't know me. And now I'm like thinking back on it. I'm like, yeah, I was going through a lot. I'm still going through a lot now, but I'm like navigating it definitely better. But I think, the Botox thing, I think there's also the like there's the the negative thought that we have of it because of all those people that have walked around and,
Yeah.
the bad injectors that over abuse it. And so it's like, again, we're like we kind of talked about in our last episode is changing the words and seeing the positive side of it and doing it in a safe way and doing it with the right people, and
Mhm.
knowing that hey, this is okay, and retraining your body again, authenticity, right? Like
Right,
reflect this
right.
authentic, truth self.
Well, I think that's the key to my I've never really thought about Botox until like every time I see my picture, I'm like, why is that thing? Why did it do that? And I had realized that I can Botox that into smoothness. But it's interesting because I was watching this, I can't remember what, but they did a study of like 25,000 people or 2,500 people. I'm dyslexic with numbers, so it's either only one, two zeros or three zeros of an energetic vibrational field that we expel from ourselves, right? Love, care, the whole thing. And the energetic field that is 4,000 times more powerful than love is authenticity. And what they were saying is it's not that love isn't important, it's that you can't get to love. You can't get there unless you go through authenticity first, is is what the study is really saying. Like everybody aims for love as it's a thing, but to get to love, you got to get through ego, you got to get through, right? You got to have the courage. The courage is your tool, and to get there. But the breaking point to the greatest self-love is authenticity. And in that authenticity, that's the challenge. Because what is it really? Come on, you guys. Like everybody's been talking about authenticity since Brene Brown came out with her book like 15 years ago. Let's like dissect that a little bit in the next 5 minutes, because that's all we got left. So in 5 minutes, let's dissect what we believe authenticity really is and what it actually isn't that everybody's saying it is. Go.
I think like the not authentic is like just going out there and saying whatever's on your mind and you thinking because you're saying that's the truth, right? I think
Right.
authenticity in its true form is having a conversation and looking at your, shadow and really saying, who am I really? Who do I who do I really show up as in the world? Like authentically being honest with myself, like the energy thing, like when Steph, like going back to what Stephanie proposed the idea, and I was like, I need to listen to my body. That was an authentic moment for me, is I was honoring me. I was speaking truth to what I really could and couldn't do, what I really was willing to do in that moment versus what I wasn't. I went out
Mhm.
with a mom friend of mine on Saturday night. She also has three boys, single mom. And she was like, I don't have my kids for the first time in forever. She's like, let's go out. And I was just like, okay, sure. Man, I walked in that club and I felt everybody's energy. And I was like, I don't want to be here. This is
Mm.
not the place for me. But I wasn't in an authentic space because I was like uncomfortable, but I was doing it for the sake of what she needed. And at the end of the night, she was like, "Oh, let's go here." I was like, "You know what? I think you should do that on your own. I really want
Mm.
that for you, but it's a no for me. I'm gonna go home." And I think
Yeah.
those are those moments where I was really truly honoring myself instead of feeling like, "Oh, I need to keep hanging out with her," because no, I did what I had the capacity for. I was honest with myself, and at the end of it, she was fine, I was fine, and that to me was me being on, because I think prior me would have been like, okay, and then I would have been even more miserable in the next space.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that answers it.
Yeah. Yeah. That is an
Yeah.
answer and a very good one. Stephanie, what about you?
I 100% agree with Lisa. So I won't get too deep into it, but the conference that I just went to was talking about our internal guidance system, right? I won't go in depth to it, but what we talk about is closing, where you get that tightness in your chest or the lump in your throat or knots in your
Mhm.
stomach. And we need to listen to that. Like that's a closing.
Yeah.
And an opening is when, like, you telling her you're not going to go to the next club and you feel a release. Like your body just like,
Right.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to go there. And
Yeah.
you release. And I think that authenticity comes to, it's, we have to be accepting of, if this person doesn't like me or they get upset with me because I'm following what I need to do for myself, that's okay. Like
Mhm.
we just have to be
Right.
okay with somebody else not being okay with what we decide to do.
Yeah.
For
True
And
ourselves.
that.
For
yeah, and
ourselves.
so,
Yep.
yeah, for ourselves. And also I think the lack, it's so funny when Brene Brown came out, it was like what, 15 years ago or something like
Yeah.
that. Over that 15 years, I think we have become less and less and less authentic.
Hmm.
And I think
Agreed.
and I think it's social media has wiped out that authenticity. And I back before when I was talking, there was I don't want to call her an influencer because it's just, I guess you could call her. She's just a really smart businesswoman, right? Like she's a very smart
Mhm.
businesswoman. Two things can be true at the same time. Really, really smart, has great knowledge. Also, she wasn't authentic till it was cool to be authentic.
Mm.
So I'm it wasn't cool for me to be authentic in the beginning, but now it's cool if I talk about my hair extensions. Oh, now it's cool that I say I've had work done. Now it's cool that I say I've had this. When it became
Right.
when it became popular on social media, that to me
Yeah.
is such a lack of authenticity. Authentic would have been just saying it at the beginning, like me sitting here going, "Yeah, this is extensions in my hair." Like this is,
Right,
and I
right.
think, and for the three of us sitting here, and I think we're all Gen X, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
40, yeah. Also, I think there is something with our generation though that is trying to pull out of that. I think there's, especially
Yeah.
women in our generation,
Yeah.
we're sick of the lack of authenticity, and we're
Yeah.
trying to get it where we're more authentic. And finding that tribe is for me
Yeah.
like trying to find a needle in a haystack,
Yeah.
Right.
because we have to use social media for our jobs, right? Like we're businesses, and I have a love-hate relationship with social media. If I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't be on it, honestly. But trying to find that tribe of really authentic women
Yeah.
is really, really, really hard
Yeah.
in this day and
Yeah.
age.
I agree. I totally agree with that. And what's also interesting about what you just said, in terms of now it's a popular thing, right? To be in an authentic space. But I also like, I feel like, remember back in the day when somebody in the hallway was like, "Oh my gosh, that person has made out with so many people," and then you find out they have not even touched anybody's lips but their mother's. I
Yeah.
feel
Mhm.
like that's what authenticity is really been stirred into, is we want to say it so much. You don't know how many interviews I have, and people will say, "I just want to be known for being a loving person." Well, if you are, why are you saying it? Like, we don't need to highlight the thing that we are already being. And that's where I think you're saying is authenticity isn't really authenticity, because authenticity isn't a word. It's
Yeah.
actually
It's an
a
essence.
actual essence. It's
Yep.
the essence of a human being, that they're either already that or they're not. And that's where I think as midlife women, that's the conflict. That's a conflict we're really having as midlife women, is we want to be authentically talking about hormone therapy, peptides, salt intake, dry ass mouth, the whole thing. But it's also like, "Ugh."
And
But
emotional authenticity. There's also
yes,
that the
yes,
emotional authenticity is a key
yes,
component that is very much missing.
yes, absolutely. So then how do you run a business and be authentic but not have to be victimy too, right? Since there's this whole balance, and I think it goes back to, we can't always do it on our own. We need each other, just like adult friendships is like HRT.
Hmm.
Right? There's varying degrees of, like Stephanie says, there's a small amount of this that you can, depending on your body, depending on the stage you're in. Do you need this much peptides? Do you need only this much? Or do you need any at all? It's in the same thing. I think we have to balance out our current life now, in terms of not letting the trauma be the information that we go to when we're choosing into our future selves.
I
Maybe.
think that's
I
also
don't know.
a whole other conversation too about, needing these friendships because, we've walked around like, oh, I don't need anybody. I got it. I can do it.
Right.
Newsflash, we are the most dependent mammal on the entire planet. We are not meant to be alone. Our mammal
Yes.
species is not meant to be alone. We are born the most vulnerable mammal on the planet. I mean, literally, there's animals that keep their
Yes.
young in the wild in a bush and go off and hunt all day long and that baby's unattended. If we can't even leave a baby for 5 seconds unattended, you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
that's just not what we're genetically built for. And so we need to also get away that's part of being unauthentic as well as saying I don't need anybody. We need
Yeah.
to reach out and be vulnerable and say the bravest thing you can do is saying I need help.
I love that. What a way to close our conversation, because that is part of my surrendering struggle, is I don't be needing nobody. Okay. I could do this. Actually, that's so not true. Obviously, because every time my husband moves, I'm like, "What are you doing? Where are you going?" Right. And I get behind that 100%. So if you start seeing us having our own social media and stuff like that, it's because Stephanie is like, I got you, bitches. Like, you go through what you're going through. I got this. Because the two over here is like, yesterday my forgiveness coach says, hey, so have you thought about like what you're gonna do in between? Because from the time the house closes to the time that the next house, she's like, where are you gonna put your furniture? I was like, oh shit, I hadn't even thought about any of that. I really think in my head it's a fantasy thing where everything's gonna go smoothly, also awesome, and it's just gonna be perfect. No, because I'm not surrendering to the pain of the fact that, wait, first maybe I should get some more estrogen in me and then make a decision from there. That would be super helpful. So, yeah, it's coming tomorrow, by the way, just in case anybody cares. There's that. Any last thoughts, ladies?
Listen to your energies. As woo-woo as it sounds, like start listening to your body because your body has been programmed for generations to teach you.
Yeah, yeah, you should take that advice, sis. Like, give yourself grace.
And ask for help. Ask for help if you need help. If you
Yeah.
have those girlfriends that you can reach out to, or that one, reach out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
I literally was going to message you guys this past week because I was talking about like my shifting like career wise. What do I want? I literally had my voice. I was going to voice memo you guys over the weekend. I'm like, they're going to think I'm insane. But I did.
No.
But you do need to do that
Yeah.
because we aren't meant to be isolated. We are social beings.
Right.
We're social
Yeah.
beings.
Yep.
I mean, Lisa said it best. We are literally genetically built to
Yes.
be dependent on each other. There is no, I mean, we're the only, because not all other types of animals can do it on their own. First thing they come out, it's like, they can walk already. What is that about?
I don't know
Anyways.
where they grow tacos, so I'm depending on other people to bring me the ingredients so that I can get a taco. Right? Like that's that thing.
Yeah,
I'm
for
not
sure.
out here chopping, chickens or slaughtering cows. Like I need other people to do that for me. So when you sit there and say, "Oh, I don't
Yeah,
need nobody," ask yourself who got you that chicken? Because I'm pretty sure it wasn't
right,
you hunting it in the wild.
right.
Right.
I mean, gosh, that hasn't happened in my life. At all.
No.
So, and just like this video that we're doing, this is our fourth one, and we still have to be like, checking how it's going or what with each other as well. Because although this is an important subject and we have things to say and we are people going through the thing we're talking about, it's still important for us to check out where we're at. And I'm really glad, Lisa, even though you didn't want to show up, I'm really glad you showed up because for me, I know that when I don't want to talk to people, that's when I know there's an issue because I actually get really ignited. I am not an introvert, so there's that. Like I need to verbalize my feelings and thoughts and all of the things because that makes me feel better. Now, if you're not that way, that's cool too, but let me know ahead of time because I will be a bugaboo because I need to talk it out. I need to talk it out. All right. Until next time, everyone, thank you so much. Share away, please. Thank you for listening to us, following us, sharing. Wait, there's nowhere to follow us yet.
Well,
But
you follow us on YouTube. You follow us
yes,
on
follow us
YouTube.
on YouTube and review, leave all your comments and the
And leave
stuff.
questions and responses to how you feel about what we've talked about today or, topics that you think we should talk about because we want to have those authentic conversations that you want to hear other women having, or our opinions or our thoughts on like something that you might be struggling with or that you're questioning.
Yes, agreed.
Yep.
All right, go take your peptides. Get your pellets, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.